Hey good people, welcome back to Monique's Book List. So, as you know, the month of November is nonfiction November, and many of the booktubers and book readers, the book community here on YouTube, try to read a lot of nonfiction, or try to read mainly, some people just do nonfiction in November because the other 11 months we read a lot of fiction. And for me, it's just hard. It's hard for me to do that because of several reasons. But the biggest reason is just that I don't enjoy a lot of nonfiction. However, I have found some really good suggestions for nonfiction November. Hopefully they work for you. They work for me. I would be lying to you to tell you that most of my TBR for the month of November was nonfiction. It's not. I will be reading at most 2 nonfiction novels in the month of November, which I'm completely comfortable with. I feel like I'm joining in on the nonfiction, but at the same time, I'm reading things that I still enjoy. And there's various reasons why people don't like reading nonfiction. For me, fiction has always helped my creativity, and just it's enjoyable to read because I don't have to feel a lot of pain and sorrow for shitty things happening to real people. And a lot of nonfiction, that's what it is. It's a lot of stories about struggle, and I don't really need to read a lot of struggle to know it. So with that being said, I do have some suggestions. And the first suggestions that I have to offer you are going to be pictured somewhere on the screen. The first one is The Devil in the White City, and the second one is Thunderstruck. These are both written by Erik Larson. Erik Larson has written both of these books, or both of these history books. They are history and fiction format. So you are getting wonderful stories about things that have happened in history, but it feels like you're reading a novel. It feels like you're reading fiction, but all of it is factual things that happen. Now, what he's done is, the great thing that he's done is he's taken 2 great events that happen in these books, and he has combined them with what we all love to read about. Most people like to read about, even if it's to mourn someone or you're just intrigued by it, murder. So the first book, The Devil in the White City, it's about the World's Fair in Chicago that happened in 1893, I believe, if I'm not wrong. And I know that 1 or 2 of the creators of it, one of them, I know his last name is Olmsted. I think it's Frederick Olmsted. He did all of like the landscape, and he's famous because he did landscaping he did Central Park. He's done a lot of the famous parks that we know of. He did the initial layout for it. And then the other gentleman, I'm pretty sure his name is Daniel Burnham, and I think there was another gentleman too. I don't remember his name. So you embark on these 3 gentlemen's like undergoing bidding for where the World's Fair is going to be at. It's everyone deciding, or the Chicago won. This is going to bring so much money to the city of Chicago. And while this is going on, in walks America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes. And you learn about the story of H.H. Holmes. You learn about how he got away with killing so many people. Now, folklore says he's killed over 200 people. He himself has, I think, only been convicted of 7 or 9 murders, but I think he has confessed to 20. And he didn't just kill random people. They're positive that he killed at least 1 or 2 of his wives. And I'm pretty sure he killed his stepchildren. And he was just a horrible person. He was a sadistic bastard. And his real name is so funny to me. I know his last name is Mudgett or something like that. It's just a really sad name. So again, the Devil in the White City is talking about how when all this great stuff was happening with the World's Fair in Chicago, right around the corner, there was a man committing a bunch of murders, and he did this all in vain. Like he wanted to be wealthy, and he wanted to be like a man of like great stature and like reverence, and that's why he took the name H.H. Holmes, because he loved Sherlock Holmes. Also, the story just surrounds it. When you're reading about the World's Fair, you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to read a whole bunch of stuff about how they did it. You learn everything. You learn everything about the World's Fair in Chicago is how we got the Pledge of Allegiance. You learn about Wild Bill and how this man was so brilliant. He decided that people who couldn't afford to go to the World's Fair, he would charge 10 cents less. So if you couldn't go to the World's Fair, you could sure enough come see Wild Bill. And he got wealthy from it. And this story was amazing, and I was inspired the way he wrote the story, not by the murders, just by the fact, like, this book is full of so much American history, and like about how, at the World's Fair, there was a women's building, and the women's architects created and designed that building and worked in that building to make it the way they wanted to. And you learn about all the trials and tribulations with the World's Fair. You learn about why we decided to do one. And it was, basically because Great Britain had did one, and it was supposed to be like the great exhibit on the Victorian period and history for the English. And so America was like, of course, we're always this way. We were like, we want one. We gonna do it better. So that's what we decided to do in Chicago. So this book is amazing. It's nonfiction, but it's written in fiction format. Now, Thunderstruck is also written by him. I have not finished Thunderstruck. It is the book I will be reading as my nonfiction in November, and I love his writing. I'm actually going to be listening to it on Audible. But yeah, the only things I know about Thunderstruck is that they will be talking about a ship. I think the ship is called Thunderstruck, and they will be talking about a couple who committed murder and thought they were going to get away with it, and they're on this ship. So it is an amazing like summary for a book. Like, can you imagine reading that? Like, that sounds like a fiction book, but it's not. It's all history, all nonfiction, and I'm excited to read it. Now, if you want to read more traditional history books, I have a few suggestions for you. I have a book about the war that took place in the First Great War, or as my husband keeps saying, why do you call it the First Great War when you could just call it World War One? It's because the war gets stuck in my lips, so I just call it the First Great War. This particular battle, the Verdun Battle of 1916, was the most it was probably the most brutal battle that took place in that war. In this city, there's still live ammo in the ground. There's this particular book goes into why it was so vicious and what happened. I think this book also has pictures in it about, like, if they're too graphic, I'm not going to show you, about why it was so bad and that kind of thing. But yes, this is the Battle of Verdun. Is, if you know about anything about wars, you know that this book is this battle is probably the biggest and best known battle. And the reason why I'm suggesting this book is because it's one of my husband's favorites, and he really likes history, and I just told him that I was going to highlight some of his favorite books. Also, my husband is really big into American history. Another book that he likes is The Founding Brothers, and of course this talks about our founding fathers and our country. This book, I haven't read it. As you see, it's a Pulitzer. You see it, you know what it won. Anyway, I have a strong opinion about the forefathers, and it's not necessarily negative. I just feel like for men to strive for freedom and still allow people to be enslaved, and know that it was a thing that they were going to have to deal with later in history. And this is how I know, because they wrote articles about eventually we're going to have to free these slaves. It kind of bothers me. So moving into that, bam, Harriet Tubman. Now this book is probably one of my favorite books about Harriet Tubman. Now, it is a lot to read about Harriet Tubman. There are, that she is considered the Moses of the Underground Railroad. She was also very, Harriet Tubman is a very special woman to me for so many reasons. And I would love to tell you that I'm related to her. I'm not. She's special to me because I know that a lot of Black children, when they're looking for people to look up to, they don't actually pick her, but I have always. She would rather die than to be someone's slave. That is fucking powerful. And to know that she had escaped to freedom and decided that I can't sit here and know that people are in bondage and people are in pain and people need to be freed, and I can't help them. I'm sitting here like I can't, but I can. And Harriet Tubman was very instrumental in the Civil War. She helped a lot of the Union soldiers identify and disarm a lot of the Confederate forts. So this is an amazing woman, and I'm telling you, I'm not just telling you this as a Black woman to read this. I'm telling you this as an American. You're looking at an American hero. You should definitely read this book if you have time. Another book that is extremely interesting to me. It is one of the books that I will be rereading in the month of November, and it is called Black Indians. Black Indians is about how, when slaves freed themselves, they would find that as they were running away from their settlements and their slave owners, they would find themselves running into these in the description, and like the one guy talks about how his grandmother was like, I ran into these people whose skin I thought looked like mine, but they were little. And she uses this and then this is a woman who lived in this time of slavery. She said, but their skin was red. So this talks about how free or runaway slaves would find themselves and would run. While they were running, they would find themselves running into Indians, and they would kind of come in the fold. I have a word in my head I want to use, but it's just not coming out. They would basically become a part of the tribe, Indian tribes, to be safe from going back into slavery. And because of that, of course, there were marriages made and babies made. And this talks about the interesting history of how many well-known African Americans are descendants of Indians. I'm glad I turned to this page. One of the most well-known, of course, is your boy Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is probably one of the most famous African American poets during the time of the Black Renaissance. Did I say that right? Black Renaissance in Harlem. And he is a descendant of Black Indians, people who were Black and mated with Native Americans. As they say here, he is Afro-American and Native American. So this is a really good book. This is a extremely good book. Again, I'm not just telling you to read this as a Black person. I'm telling you to read this as an American. This is a really good book. Another book that I would suggest, of course, is The Unfolding of Language. I bought this for my husband because my husband is an extremely intelligent man who loves history. He loves history about anything and everything. And I thought this would be interesting for him to read about the history of language and where it comes from. And he enjoyed it. He said it's a good read. I'm actually going to buy it on Audible and listen to it, because, and it's not going to be this November. It'll probably be next November. Honestly, I got too many books to read in this November. And if you saw my end of the year tag, or if you see it soon, you'll know why I have too many damn books to read. Anyway, so Unfolding Language. And as we know, language, like everything else in this world, it is evolving. And this explains how it evolved to where it is. I think, when was this written? 2000 something. So yeah, we all know that everything evolves, and languages too. So this is a very good book about language. I have read some of it, like just flipping through it and reading it, and I thought it was interesting, but I really am going to get it on Audible so I can listen to it in spurts. And that's what I would suggest for many of these. If you don't want to read them, get the audiobooks. They're usually a little less expensive, and you can listen to them in like spurts instead of trying to read the whole thing or read 6 chapters. Yeah, just do that. Did I have any more suggestions? Oh, if you don't want to read history books, I would suggest, listen, I'm just trying to give you ideas, all right? How about you read a book about like on learning a new skill? So if you've ever wanted to learn to sew, read a book about sewing in the month of November. It's nonfiction. I'm just trying to give you suggestions, because if you're like me, you have a hard time reading nonfiction because it's tied to real people, real pain, real stories, and I struggle with that. Of course, if you want to read memoirs, there's tons of them that are great. Carrie Fisher has 3. I'm reading her last one currently. Well, actually, I started reading it in October. I'm going to probably finish reading it in December. I think it's called Diaries of a Princess. Not a princess. Princess Diaries or something like that. It's something to do with her her character on Star Wars. Yeah. I can't think of it. Yeah, she has a really good one. She's written 3. The one I'm talking about was the one she wrote 6 months before she passed away. There's tons. There's Trevor Noah. There's Kevin Hart has one. Everyone has one. Of course, my girl, Michelle Obama, Becoming. I know a lot of people, listen, politics aside, this is a great book about becoming an adult and realizing that all your validation you need is in you. This is a good book about that. Also, who else is a good one? What's her name? Jennifer Lewis. She has a great one where she talks about her mental illness and how to get over mental illness. You have to do the work. You have to be willing to decide every day you're going to get up and do the work that's required for your healing, or your constant, you're just healing. And it's a really good novel. I mean, a really good book. I think the title of that one is called Jennifer Lewis, the Mother of Black Hollywood. Great nonfiction memoir. Who else? There's so many great. I think Carol Burnett has a really good one too, and someone else has a really, really good one that I really enjoyed. I cannot remember. I promise you. There's a lot. I think I recently read another nonfiction book that I was going to suggest, and I can't think of it right now because there's so many suggestions. There's so much out there that you can read. I'm just trying to give you a few, and some in a little less traditional format. Maybe these are traditional. And if they are, I just wanted to give you some suggestions. So with all that being said, I promise you I'm going to stop talking. All right. Until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Bye. Thank you for watching again.